Hero, Tokyo Sexwale. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Mandela is the hero. We are just the small people around him. I'm happy to be here.
But he would say that about you and everybody around him. That was his nature, wasn't it?
Well, a leader who is so iconic and will continue to say that, as well as so emblematic as Nelson Mandela, characterizes the aspect of leadership through humility. He would call people like you and I heroes. But who's the hero of Nelson Mandela? It is the children. It is people who he regards as the future. So that was his nature. The fact that today, and this is the saddest thing, because I never believed one day I would speak about him in the past tense. He was. And first time that we say these things. So, but that's the kind of leader he was. A man of the people who recognizes that the fortitude that he carries as a leader comes from amongst the people. You can only be a leader located within the masses.
When did you first meet Madiba, and what was that meeting like?
My meeting with Madiba was not merely the first on Robben Island. I met Madiba within his environment. His home, where I lived with Winnie Mandela when I was a student, Orlando West High, the university, the high school where the kids were shot, living with Winnie for 2 years, and the small Zenani and Zinzi. They were only this high. You meet Madiba in the clothes that were there, his jackets, his law gown, the books that were left after the raids on the Rivonia, his shoes, his house, the door that was not locking and so on. Then you meet Madiba through the books that he has left, his handwriting, the letters of Winnie, whenever they came, and the tears whenever she returned from visiting him. Then you meet Madiba by being in his movement, in his army, where he was a first commander-in-chief. For me, it was personal, in that when I was arrested in the Pretoria case, and I was accused number one, there I was sitting exactly where accused number one of Rivonia was sitting by this time here, but also defended by the same lawyers who defended in Rivonia, led by now late again Arthur Chaskasin. Fast forward, Robben Island. So when you meet him, now I'm meeting Mandela, the physical man, beyond ideology, beyond anything. I was meeting the father of Zenani. I saw the husband of Winnie Nomzamo, Zami as he called her, Mandela. And there is the face. I met a man who I thought I was in the presence of greatness. Here is a man who was towering amongst his peers. Respect from people such as Governor Mbeki, Walter Sisulu, Raymond Mhlaba, the Rivonia group. But most importantly, you meet a man who had to carry his stature amongst the jailers who had great awe and respect for him. That's the man I met on Robben Island.
There are leaders that come through time and through life, and I don't know what it is or how we can describe it, but you naturally just want to follow them. What was it about Madiba that people just wanted to follow him?
I think we should contextualize Madiba, and the truth must never go down. Madiba is a diamond of different facets. And the long walk is characterized by many, many episodes of his life. The Mandela that we are talking about today, the late Nelson Mandela, this leader that you're referring to, seems the holy man. There's that greatness, the faultless white clothes. That's not the picture. You are talking about somebody who himself, in his book, The Long Walk to Freedom, has confessed about his failings as a human being. That encourages us also to recognize our own failings and correct them. A rebel rouser, a troublemaker, you know, the name Kgolihlahla stuck with him. A troublemaker. He caused a lot of grief to other people. But he writes about it. He confesses to the world that this is me. Now, what did you think of the fact that when the ANC was banned and it had to go underground and it was time now to struggle, armed struggle. You know, armed struggle, by the way, it means you also now start to kill. Who did they go for? Some saint? Tutu, Dalai Lama? No. They went for Nelson Mandela. Why? Because they knew that there's fight in him. But at that time, he's chosen to lead the fight underground. It's armed struggle. It's about now being prepared to die, but also to kill. This is the man that they chose. And at that time, the diamond had been properly cut. Otherwise, he could not be given that responsibility. Now we had a different person who had grown, who recognized his shortcomings, who knew now that it's the mantle of leadership that is going to be carried with dignity that now is on his shoulders. There starts another journey, a different facet, the one that we're talking about. But people should not forget, this is a soldier. This is a fighter. This was a troublemaker. A warning to those who think that you've got to be a firebrand, a troublemaker. Don't make the mistakes of Nelson Mandela when he was in his 40s or during the 40s. Start where he ended today. So you can't say, I'll do funny things because Mandela did it. That's not the message I'm sending out of here. We are saying that he had these shortcomings. Learn from those shortcomings, but start your life where he has ended his.
What did you personally learn the most on Robben Island with him?
Holding on to hope. Mandela came to Robben Island after surviving a death penalty. Mandela was there for life. Will you ever leave this place? I found a great sense of hope amongst the leadership there, of one day. We may not physically leave this place because we are here to die. It's life sentence. But the hope on the vision and the mission of the future. Liberty. Democracy must survive. That's why we talk about a non-racial, a democratic, united, non-sexist South Africa for prosperity. I think we've achieved them all today. A non-racial, a democratic, united, non-sexist South Africa. But the prosperous one, that's where now he has left us with the mission of, we have given you a country, don't break it apart.
All right. We're going to continue having this conversation about Madiba as we reflect on your memories and your thoughts about the time you spent with him and the legacy that he leaves behind. We're talking to Tokyo Sexwale, a man who's known him intimately on very many levels. But that conversation will continue shortly. Leanne, we are going to one of our journalists around the country.
Yeah, we certainly are. Thanks very much, Peter. Now, the hive of activity has been seen since the evening of the news that Mandela passed away at his Houghton home. Many people flocking down there to put flowers outside of his house, singing songs throughout the night. Vigils are being held, prayer services. Everybody from all walks of life have been going there. So we've got our reporter, Gillian Pile, who is there on this Sunday morning. And I can only imagine that families are making their way down there at this time already. So let's get an update from her and find out what's happening there in Houghton. Gillian, good morning to you.
Good morning, Leanne. A very special Sunday morning for many people here. What we are seeing, as you said in the intro, a continuous outpouring of tributes in the form of flowers, in the form of candles, in the form of messages of appreciation, messages saying, You'll remain in our hearts, you'll never be forgotten. We're also seeing quite a few cyclists and runners passing through this area, just stopping. Many people have just come down here to pause, to take in what has been happening here since the announcement that Madiba has passed on. You're quite hit by the smell of flowers, Lee, and it's a huge, flowers stretching from this pavement to the opposite end. And one is quite moved by these gestures that will possibly continue throughout the day. We are hoping to talk to quite a few people in our next crossings with you who will just tell us, their feelings, what do they remember about Tata, What will they take with him from this point onwards? Leanne.
Oh, Gillian, thank you. Thank you very much. And I know that so many people are going down there today and are going to be dropping off flowers and pictures and dedications in whatever form and whatever way. And it's absolutely beautiful, I must say, just to see what people are doing. I was saying that yesterday I just happened to be in the Sandton area, so I went into the the Nelson Mandela Square, where the big statue is, and there's just queues and queues of people waiting to have their photograph taken next to the statue. Others are standing in a queue just to sign the book of dedication and write their message to Madiba in that book. And others are just dropping flowers or photographs or you name it, everything. And there's just hundreds of bunches of flowers once you take a look at the square, with a big screen television that's also been erected over that as well. Couple of messages coming in from people that have been writing into us this morning, because as you know, today has begun the official week of mourning, well, 10 days of mourning, but of course today is the start of the prayers, and the day that many have been urged to go to their places of worship, where they can just reflect over Mandela and just pray there. And we're asking people, what are they going to be praying for today? Obviously, most importantly, that Mandela rests in peace. That is the top of our minds. But what else will you be praying for at this time as you make your way there? Kanya writing and saying, goodbye, our David, armed with a stone. What an extraordinary man. Rest in peace, Wale Khahla, our great teacher. Kanya, I think, in a way, stealing the words from Maya Angelou. She's written the most incredible poem that was, we played a little bit earlier on the program, and I'm asking our director, Johan, if he can play it again, which he's going to do for us. It is the most magnificent dedication to Mandela, and she wrote it, Maya Angelou. He was a great fan of her work, in fact, quoting from her in his 1994 inauguration speech, and she has written a poem in dedication of him. This Given B writing and saying, this person is saying, I'm waiting confirmation of attendance from the Pope, as that is another giant who will be in charge of the world. Yeah, we'll be hearing confirmations coming in all the time of people that will be attending this funeral. We haven't as yet heard if the Pope will be attending, but certainly confirmations that we've seen in this morning. The UN Secretary General will be there, Ban Ki-moon. They're all attending the memorial service. These are the confirmations we've got in. The Mexican president also confirming his attendance. As you know, Michelle and Barack Obama, the US president, will be there, as well as the former US President Bill Clinton, also stating he will be there. There's also going to be George and Laura Bush, the other presidents of the United States. They're saying they'll be there. Other heads of state, French President Francois Hollande saying he'll be there. Chad's president, Idris Deby, New Zealand's Prime Minister John Key, representatives from China, Iran, Cuba, Israel, Palestinian territories. A British delegation is also expected to be coming out to the funeral. Presumably, some are feeling that Prince Charles and possibly Prince William, as well as Prime Minister David Cameron, would be making their way to South Africa. So all of these names are going to be here in South Africa, as some have been describing it as the biggest funeral that this world has ever seen, and memorial service. So that all taking place in the country today. Now, that poem by Maya Angelou that I was telling you about, we've got it. If you haven't heard it as yet, it's one of the most beautiful, beautiful dedications. We've got Tokyo Sexwale in the studio. Tokyo, you're going to love this. If you haven't heard it, I'm telling you, listen to this. It's going to move you.
His day is done, The news came on the wings of a wind reluctant to carry its burden. Nelson Mandela's day is done. The news expected and still unwelcome reached us in the United States, and suddenly our world became somber. Our skies were leadened. His day is done. We see you, South African people, standing speechless at the slamming of that final door through which no traveler returns. Our spirits reach out to you, Bantu, Zulu, Xhosa, Boer. We think of you and your son of Africa, your father, You are one more wonder of the world. We send our souls to you as you reflect upon your David, armed with a mere stone, facing down the mighty Goliath. Your man of strength, Gideon, emerging triumphant, although born into the brutal embrace of apartheid, scarred by the savage atmosphere of racism, unjustly imprisoned in the bloody maws of South African dungeons. Would the man survive? Could the man survive? His answer strengthened men and women around the world. In the Alamo in San Antonio, Texas, on the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, in Chicago's Loop, in New Orleans' Mardi Gras, in New York City's Times Square. We watched as the hope of Africa sprang through the prison's doors, his stupendous heart intact, his gargantuan will hale and hearty. He had not been crippled by brutes, nor was his passion for the rights of human beings diminished by 27 years of imprisonment. Even here in America, we felt the cool, refreshing breeze of freedom when Nelson Mandela took the seat of presidency in his country, where formerly he was not even allowed to vote. We were enlarged by tears of pride as we saw Nelson Mandela's former prison guards invited courteously by him to watch from the front rows his inauguration. We saw him accept the World's Award in Norway with the grace and gratitude of the Solon in ancient Roman courts and the confidence of African chiefs from ancient royal stools. No sun outlasts its sunset, but will rise again and bring the dawn. Yes, Mandela's day is done, yet we, his inheritors, will open the gates wider for reconciliation, and we will respond generously to the cries of blacks and whites, Asian, Hispanics, the poor who live piteously on the floor of our planet. He has offered us understanding. We will not withhold forgiveness, even from those who do not ask. Nelson Mandela's day is done. We confess it in tearful voices, yet we lift our own to say thank you. Thank you, our Gideon. Thank you, our David, our great courageous man. We will not forget you. We will not dishonor you. We will remember and be glad that you lived among us, that you taught us, and that you loved us all.
Wow, very, very powerful poem there by the great Maya Angelou, paying tribute to Madiba. And Maya Angelou is one of the poets that Madiba himself enjoyed reading and, in fact, even quoted in one of his famous speeches. We've been talking to Toke Sexwale, who's spent many years with him on Robben Island, but has continued to be a friend, confidant, and also employee. Mr. Sexwale, for Madiba over the years.
Well, not really employees, but I guess we're all his employees, you know, but appointed by him, and it's a great responsibility, but also an honor, now that he's left, to handle his trusts, but also to serve on his foundation, where there's a center of memory to take forward his legacy. And at the Center of Memory today, I invite people. I know it's in the wires. There's also a church service at 12 o'clock today. So are we his employees? Yes. Madiba is the boss. I say so because he can only be described as the salt of the earth. You know, he wrote in The Long Walk to Freedom about the death that touched him the most, he said, is that of Oliver Tambo, his friend, confidante, comrade, and mentor as well. And he speaks in page number about 600 and something about the poet Plato, talking about poetry now, using the allegro of minerals to compare people. Minerals being silver, being gold, and so on. He refers, therefore, to Tambo in the allegro of minerals as pure gold. I would say for this employee to speak about the employer, Madiba is the purest of the minerals.
How important was this foundation for him?
Madiba didn't establish a foundation to remain as a foundation a la museum. The foundation contains, and you were speaking earlier to the founding CEO, John Samuel here, contains archives, very important hitherto unpublished materials, reports, research about the legacy, the times of his life, the history, and so on. It comes from across the world and is now open to the public. What a coincidence that it's only a few days ago that the president of South Africa, Comrade Zuma, came to be and was invited by us in the foundation to come and open the new foundation house of Nelson Mandela. Somehow, and he spoke so well about Madiba, somehow there was an indication a few days ago at the foundation, opened by Jacob Zuma, that something was about to give. So that foundation represents a great responsibility of us taking forward his legacy. That's why we have inside the foundation the Center of Memory. People should go there and make themselves acquainted with the works.
Yeah, you were part of many memories that this man created and enjoyed. And we spoke with John Samuel a little bit earlier on about the World Cup and winning the 2010 World Cup bid. Let's take a look at what happened, and then you can share a story with us.
The Soccer World Cup, watched by 1 billion people on the planet. It's the world's most beautiful game. South Africa first lost the bid to Germany. Undeterred, it used its most famous mascot. Madiba used his charm and charisma, gently urging and quiet diplomacy to lobby for his home country. Later, he flew to Zurich for the announcement, along with former presidents Thabo Mbeki and F.W. de Klerk, and Desmond Tutu. The four loomed large at FIFA's head offices. On 15th May 2004, the day of the announcement, a decision was taken that Madiba must not travel to the venue where the announcement was to be made. But later, he was taken to the venue. His towering presence was not lost on those present.
The 2010 FIFA World Cup will be organized in South Africa.
A dream come true for the avid soccer fan.
I can see at the grave where I'm going to be buried. And so I am realistic. I don't have long to live because even my activities, I intend to scale them down.
And bracing against the cold, in 2010, Madiba finally saw the culmination of his work. Once again, uniting a nation.
Wow, it's a moment that you can relive over and over again, and it's the same emotions every time. An important moment for him.
Let me say something about the SABC on that day. He was answering a question which had been asked by one of your journalists, Sophie Mukwena.
Right.
I think she was accredited to Madiba's delegation at that time. And I think Sophie had said, how do you feel now that we've got the World Cup? And he spoke about his death. I can see my grave now.
Wow.
Madiba always spoke about this death, which will come, how he'll go to heaven, what he'll say to other leaders when he goes there. But I want to say it's remarkable that it was the SABC which captured that moment when he said, with the World Cup, it's all done, I can see my grave now.
And you talk about heaven. One quote he says is that as soon as he gets there, he'll go and look for the local branch of the ANC. And he was ANC through and through, wasn't he? What did the party mean to him?
I'm happy you ask about the ANC, because sometimes people feel we should not say anything about the ANC in respect of Nelson Mandela. Mandela is of the ANC. He is a child of the ANC. So the statement he always made that when I get to heaven, I'll look for a branch. People should not take it literally. You know who's in charge there. It's not Nelson Mandela. So when he makes that statement, it's really saying that the ANC is so good for me that the day I depart, I will open its branch in heaven. The Madiba should be seen, therefore, we should contextualize his life within the family where he was located. It's not a sin to do that. You see, when one of his closest friends, Helen Suzman, our mother in prison, as the sole representative who came to us from Parliament to rub our wounds. When Helen passed away, we could not take away the fact that she was a member of the Progressive Party. There's no sin about that. So there's no sin to project Nelson Mandela, whilst he's a father of this nation, but also that he was located within the ANC. That is why we of the ANC must be able then to say, how well do we measure up going forward to the method of his example? How good are we in measuring to the standards set by him, his policies, because we carry those policies, his values, his principle. It is most important for the ANC to come across very clear on that, because that's where the spotlight is going to be. How do you measure on this icon who comes from amongst your ranks? So that's the challenge for the ANC. But beyond that, the challenge for all South Africans, how do we measure on his ethics, his morality, his values, because the world is now watching.
All right. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but very quickly, if you could just, what is the example that we should follow from Madiba?
Those who did not hear Nelson Mandela and his message on his values, his principles, on freedom of speech, democracy, no corruption, liberty, on all sorts of things, even including children. If you did not hear Nelson Mandela whilst he was walking on this planet, it will not help us to linger and hang on to his robes. Right. We can hang around his coffin, his graves. It will not make sense if you do not listen to the method of his example or the example of his method. So what should we do? What should we say? Measure up to this iconic, emblematic salt of the earth individual. Later, I'll send you a poem. Maybe you have a chance, you can read it. I wrote the poem.
All right. We'll certainly share that poem with our viewers, but I think that's a great place to leave your thoughts about Madiba this morning. Thank you for joining us and sharing this man with us.
Peter, good name. I thank you.
Thank you. All right, okay, so one of the prayer meetings that's taking place this morning is happening out in Bryanston, and that's where President Jacob Zuma is going to be having his moment of prayer this morning, and our presidential correspondent